My stepmother wanted to give my deceased mother's jewelry as a wedding gift to my stepsister, but my joke of exchanging it for fakes gets me some laughs. Hey everyone, Alex, 25 here. I gotta get this off my chest because it's been way too much to keep to myself. Some background. I lost my mom a few years back, and it was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. She was like my best friend and my mom, so losing her hit me pretty hard. She wasn't just my mom, she was my home. When she died, the grief was unbearable. Everything in my life changed overnight, and the only thing that gave me any comfort was the jewelry she left behind. My mom loved her jewelry. She wasn't rich or anything, but she had this beautiful collection of pieces she'd gathered over the years. Some from my dad, some she bought herself, and some inherited from her family. She'd tell me the story behind every single piece. There was a delicate gold bracelet my grandma gave her for her 18th, a locket with a baby picture of me, a gorgeous sapphire ring my dad gave her for their anniversary, and a few others. 6 pieces in total, all deeply cherished by her. Even when she was sick, she'd still put on her jewelry. Some days, when the illness hit her harder and she felt too weak to get out of bed, she'd still put on her favorite rings or earrings just to feel a little more like herself. She'd smile at her reflection, like it gave her some life back. After she passed, those jewels became my most prized possessions, not because they were worth a lot of money, but because they were the only thing I had left of her. Every time I saw one of those pieces, it reminded me of her and flooded me with memories. And then came my dad's new wife, Marta, 57, and her daughter, Morgan, 24. If I'm talking about my stepmom and stepsister here, you know I didn't exactly warm up to them. I never saw them as competition to replace my mom, but we just weren't compatible at all. My dad married Marta barely a year after my mom died, which felt weird. I have to admit, I wasn't ready for him to move on, and honestly, it didn't seem like he was either, but he did it anyway. And since he's my dad, I thought he deserved another shot at life after losing his first love. Marta was correct, I guess, in that fake, polite way. She acted nice, but she always had that weird vibe that makes you second-guess people. Morgan, though, was worse. Morgan was spoiled, stuck up, and she had this way of talking to me like she was better than me, maybe because of the age difference, but she wasn't anything special compared to me. But somehow, she saw me as inferior. Fast forward to a year ago. Morgan was getting married, big wedding, huge guest list, the whole 9 yards. And Marta decided she wanted to give her my mom's jewelry as a wedding gift. She didn't even ask me, she just thought they were hers to give away. I found out because I overheard her talking on the phone, excited, telling a friend how beautiful Morgan would look in the sapphire ring and that she planned to give it to her at the bridal shower. She was talking about my mom's ring, my ring. The ring my dad gave my mom back when they were happy, when she was still alive. The one she used to wear even when her hands were frail and thin from treatment. No, she was not giving that away. I didn't waste any time confronting her about it. I asked her what the hell she was talking about, and she gave me that look like I was overreacting, and said, "Oh, sweetie, it's a family heirloom, it should stay in the family." I told her, they are staying in the family, they're staying with me, because she was my mother, and you two aren't related to her at all. I made it crystal clear those jewels weren't hers to give away, that they were my mom's, now mine, and she had no right to even touch them, let alone give them to Morgan. She played surprised, like she genuinely didn't understand why I was upset. And she had the nerve to tell me Morgan was my sister now, and that I should want her to have something special for her wedding day. I told her Morgan wasn't my sister, and my mom's jewelry wasn't some trinket she could just give away like she owned them. Then my dad stepped in. Any normal parent would be sticking up for their kid on this, because if my mother left them to me, the only one who could give them away was me, and I wasn't going to. But not my dad, who saw how much those things meant to my mother and consequently to me. He told me to calm down. He said, "They're just jewelry, Alex. They're a family heirloom. They should go to Morgan since she's getting married first." I asked him if he really thought my mom, his wife of over 20 years, would be okay with that. He had the audacity to tell me that the memory would live in us, not in some stupid jewelry. However, Morgan could use them and it wouldn't be a big deal. Maybe she could even give them back to me later, or something. Right, like that would ever happen. He also told me it was all in the past and we needed to move on. I lost it. I told him if Marta or Morgan took even one piece of my mom's jewelry, I would never forgive them. That I would never speak to him again. He just sighed, like I was a spoiled kid throwing a tantrum, and told me to think about it. But I reiterated that they legally belonged to me and there would be legal consequences. I took some time to think about what my dad said, not because I was actually considering giving away my mom's jewelry, but because I realized something. My dad wasn't going to back me up, that was clear. And Marta was determined to make my life miserable until the wedding. I saw it in her smile. She was confident she'd wear me down until I gave them up. So I did something not only to prevent any future problems, but also to get a little revenge. I played along and pretended to agree. A few days after the argument, I went downstairs and told my dad and Marta that I'd thought about it, and they were right. I'd been too emotional, that I needed to stop clinging to the past, and maybe it was time to let go. Marta looked so smug. It took everything in me not to laugh when she gave me her fake, sympathetic smile and said, "Oh, honey, I knew you'd understand. It's what your mother would have wanted." I wanted to scream, but that would ruin my plan. Instead, I just smiled and nodded like I agreed. I even said I thought Morgan would love the jewelry and it was nice that she'd have something meaningful to wear on her wedding day. My dad looked relieved, like he'd been expecting another fight. I had an old friend, Lauren, I hadn't talked to in a while. We were never super close, but she was really nice, and luckily, her brother was a jeweler. I reached out to her, and after catching up a bit, I casually mentioned I needed a special job done. Nothing too elaborate, just some really convincing replicas. She was curious, of course, but I was vague with the details. I just told her I needed duplicates made and I was willing to pay whatever it took. She put me in touch with her brother, and after I explained what I needed, he agreed to help me. And the best part? My little prank didn't cost too much. It was money well spent. I met up with him the next week and gave him all the pieces. The sapphire ring, the gold bracelet, the locket, a pair of diamond earrings, a pearl necklace, and a small sentimental brooch. I wasn't sure which one Marta had picked, so I had to cover all my bases. Her brother was really good at his job. When he handed me the finished fakes, I could barely tell the difference. The weight was a little off, and if you looked really closely you could see some imperfections, but to the average person, they were identical. He even made sure to wear them down a bit so they looked aged. Then, with the originals, I made sure to put them somewhere safe, away from the house, while I put the fakes exactly where the originals had been. I made sure everything was exactly as it was before, the same boxes, the same arrangement, nothing that would raise suspicion. And then, I waited. That night, Marta called me downstairs. I had to force myself to act normal when she offered me a glass of wine and said, "I just wanted to thank you again for being so mature about this, Alex. I know it was hard for you, but you're doing the right thing." Inside, I was just thinking, I'm doing more than the right thing. For the next year, everything was normal. Life went on, and honestly, I thought I'd gotten away with it. Morgan wore the necklace a couple times, and Marta would make comments here and there about how beautiful she looked in my mom's jewelry. I had to bite my tongue every time to keep from making a comment or laughing. It was so funny seeing her think she had the real pieces when they were just junk. The real ones were safe in a bank safety deposit box, except for a few sentimental pieces I kept with me that were small enough to hide. I wasn't taking any chances. I had won against Marta, and I thought that was the end of it. But 2 weeks ago, I got a call. It was my dad. He sounded annoyed, like his day had been an incredible pain. Apparently Marta and Morgan decided to take the jewelry to get it appraised, and the appraiser told them they were fake. I almost dropped the phone. I'd spent a whole year thinking it would never cross their minds to take them to an appraiser. Sure, they could have done it for insurance purposes or to know their worth better, but it felt a little petty of them to try and sell them and get some money from them. And honestly, the whole situation just made me angrier than before. It just confirmed I had been right all along. Neither of them cared about the family connection. All they wanted was to see how much they could get for them. They weren't even asking me if I was okay with them selling them, since they were family heirlooms, as they called them. I had to think fast, so I played dumb, acted surprised. I even blurted out, "What do you mean, fake?" just to make it sound more real. He told me the appraiser said they weren't authentic. That they looked good, but they were fakes. Morgan and Marta were losing their minds. They think I did something. I almost burst out laughing right then, but I forced myself to stay calm. "How weird," I said. "I don't know anything about that." "But why were they getting them appraised?" "I thought they were family pieces." That shut him up for a moment. He hesitated answering and I could hear the doubt in his voice. "Well, they just wanted to know the value, you know, just to know." "Yeah, I'm sure that's it." I kept up the act, all confused and worried. I even had the nerve to say, "Wow, that's crazy. Maybe the jeweler made a mistake, or maybe they were always fake and Mom never knew." I think that last part threw him off, because he started defending my mom, saying she would never have worn fake jewelry, which, yeah, is true. But I had to make him doubt everything to get the suspicion off me. Finally, he said he'd call me later and hung up. And that's when the laughter really hit me. I couldn't believe I not only got them to believe they had the real ones, but that they were actually trying to sell them and showing what gold diggers they are. Though I still had doubts about whether my dad was in on their plan, or if he was just getting played. I don't regret what I did, not for a second. If I had to do it again, I would. But maybe I'd add some hidden message to the fakes. Something that doesn't point to me, but maybe just mocks them. I'm not sure exactly what my mom would have thought about all this, but knowing I protected her jewelry and taught those two opportunists, my stepmom and stepsister, a lesson, I think she would have found it hilarious. I hope you guys find it funny too. Before continuing, don't forget to subscribe. New stories every day. Update 1. It's been a wild few weeks, and I figured I should drop an update because with so much going down, I'd have to write a whole book if I waited any longer. After my last post, I was pretty much living on edge, waiting for the call that they'd figured out what happened. I was already braced for whatever came my way, because at this point, I didn't really care all that much. But things have gotten a little chaotic since I was last on this sub, so here we go. About a week after that call, my dad showed up at my apartment out of the blue. This guy had never done that before. He always calls ahead if he's planning to visit. I opened the door, and there he was, looking pretty ticked off. He didn't even say hi, just walked in like we were at war, turned around, and hit me with, "Marta wants to take legal action against you." I kept my face neutral and said, "Legal action? For what?" He crossed his arms and said, "For the stolen jewelry." I just stared at him for a second, trying to figure out if he was serious. He was. I told him, "First off, you can't steal something that already belongs to you. Mom left me those jewels legally in her will. And second, I didn't steal anything." That really set him off. He launched into this whole speech about how selfish I was, how I was stealing from his family, how Mom would have wanted me to share. Then he hit me with, "Why would an appraiser say they're fake if you didn't switch them?" And that's where I almost screwed up. I was getting angry and wanted to let loose on him, but I took a deep breath and just said, "I don't know, Dad, maybe they were always fake." And that made him hesitate for a second. But then he shook his head and said, "That's impossible, your mother's jewelry was real." And I shot back, "Then why were they getting them appraised? Maybe Mom didn't trust you and that's why she switched them. Like, you'd be proving her point." I saw it on his face. He knew what I was hinting at. That Marta and Morgan were planning to sell Mom's jewelry and now that they couldn't, they were furious. And at that point, he didn't say anything else and just left. I figured maybe that would be the end of it, but nope. A couple days later, I got a call from my mom's side aunt, Sydney, 53. She was livid. Apparently, Marta had been talking to the whole family, telling them I stole Morgan's wedding jewelry and replaced it with fakes. She was playing the victim and telling everyone I'd betrayed the family. But Sydney didn't buy it. She told me there was no way my mom would have wanted Morgan to have that jewelry. What's more, my mom had specifically told Sydney that she wanted me to have her jewelry. She knew my dad might remarry someday and she was worried a new wife would try to get their hands on them. My mom knew. So for now, I'm in the clear, but the accusations are still out there. I don't really care though, because they can accuse me of whatever they want, but legally they're still mine and they can't sue. Maybe they'll even get sued themselves, by some judge who sues them for making him laugh so hard his glasses fall off. I dunno. What I do know is, I thought the laughs would just be at the wedding, seeing her in her fake jewelry, but my little prank is still paying off a year later. It's really hard not to just jump out and say, Dad, it's a prank. But if I do, I'd miss out on all this free entertainment they're providing. Update 2. The replica prank is still providing plenty of drama, and it doesn't look like the updates are gonna stop anytime soon. Things had been calming down, and I thought all good things must come to an end, but life threw another surprise my way, and this one was a good one. Marta just snitched on herself in the most spectacular way possible. After my last update, Marta and Morgan had a massive fight. Morgan felt totally betrayed about not getting the real jewels and getting married in fakes, so she was furious about how that made her look in front of everyone. She thinks everyone at her wedding was some kind of expert jewelry appraiser who took one look and knew they weren't real and were gossiping about her. They barely spoke for weeks. I figured that would be the end of it, but a few days ago, I got this super long message from Morgan, and when I say long, I mean the Bible is a light read. The TLDR, so I don't crash Reddit's servers, was that I was a horrible sister and how I'd ruined her wedding and it was tarnished. She was claiming I was lying about the jewels being fake and that she deserved the real pieces because she was part of the family now. And then she said the most absurd thing she possibly could have. I don't care if you switched them, I just want the originals back. There's no point in keeping up the facade anymore, everyone already suspects me. I was hoping I could stay in the shadows a bit longer. At that point, I was just so over another message from Methuselah, so I just replied, Morgan, I have no idea what you're talking about. The jewelry you got is what you deserve, no more, no less. She told me they had proof now and that they'd make sure I paid for what I'd done. The next day, my dad called and he sounded like he'd been kept awake all night with both of them yelling in each ear. He said, Marta wants to press charges. I just burst out laughing. I asked, on what grounds? For keeping my own inheritance? Apparently, Marta was serious. She went to see a lawyer to see if she could sue me for theft. But the lawyer basically told her that since the jewels were legally mine, anything I had given her was fine, and she had no case. I've never had to go see a lawyer, so I don't know if she had to pay for that consultation. But if she did, she could have saved her money by asking a 5-year-old who would have told her the exact same thing. That made her absolutely furious. So much so, that she ended up incriminating herself without even realizing it. Because, during one of her tantrums, she confessed to my dad that she had always planned to give Mom's jewelry to Morgan, no matter what I said. She admitted she never even thought about asking for my permission because she believed I was selfish and that Morgan deserved to get them as a wedding gift. I don't know exactly what clicked in my dad's head, but something shifted. Maybe it was the fact that Marta openly admitted she didn't care about my mom's wishes. Maybe it was him realizing she'd been lying to him all this time. Or maybe he just finally saw how ridiculous and cruel the whole thing had been. Whatever it was, that same night I got another call from him. This time, he wasn't angry with me. He was angry at Marta. He apologized to me. He admitted he'd been an idiot for not seeing Marta's manipulation sooner. He said my mom's jewelry should never have even been a topic of discussion. And then he said something I never thought I'd hear from him. I think I made a mistake marrying her. I don't care what happens with their marriage, that's not my problem. But the fact that he even said that is huge. The next day, he and Marta got into another argument. He told her she had completely crossed the line, that she had no right to touch Mom's stuff, and Marta blew up. She ranted about how I was turning him against her, that she was just trying to be a good mom by giving Morgan something meaningful, and that she deserved the jewelry more than I did because she was the new wife. The argument escalated so much that Marta ended up packing her bags and went to stay with Morgan for a few days. And my dad? He looks oddly relieved. I have no idea what's gonna happen with their marriage now. And I know some people are gonna see me as the bad guy now, because my prank destroyed a marriage. But if you're one of those people who thinks that I can recommend a lawyer so you can pay for a stupid consultation too. Update 3. This thing has officially imploded. And when I say imploded, I mean like, scorched earth, total nuclear meltdown level. After my last update, things were weirdly quiet. Marta was still staying at Morgan's place, and my dad wasn't talking about her much. I was just doing my own thing, keeping my distance. Honestly, I thought maybe she was just gearing up to come back and pretend nothing happened. Instead, Marta decided that if she was going down, she was taking everyone with her. About a week ago, my dad called me. The first thing he said was, "You are not going to believe what Marta just did." Apparently, Marta decided to go full-on scorched earth crazy and started spilling every secret she could find, secrets that were a little light on the truth. She contacted every single relative on my dad's side and started spinning this wild narrative about how she was emotionally abused during the marriage, how dad never treated her as an equal, and how I was a manipulative liar who stole from the family. She went all out. She started digging, looking for any past mistakes, old arguments, anything she could use to turn the family against us. Marta was so focused on blowing up me and my dad, she forgot one really important detail. She had secrets too. And my dad finally decided to start looking into things. So, after her meltdown, my dad did something he should have done years ago. He looked through his finances. And he found out that Marta had been siphoning money from their joint account for years. We're talking thousands of dollars that disappeared into expenses my dad never approved. Some of that money went towards Morgan's wedding, some went to God knows what else, and some just vanished without a trace. And my dad, who thought he hadn't contributed to his stepdaughter's wedding, and that it had been paid for by her mom and dad. I even remember at the wedding he told Morgan's dad everything looked beautiful and thanked him for everything, when it was he who was paying. Okay, it was Marta with the money she'd been stealing from him for years, but the point is the same. From the first minute, she didn't deny any of it. She just shrugged and said something like, "Well, I deserved it after everything I put up with." She married a man who paid for everything, who let her daughter live rent-free, and gave her full access to his money, and she still felt entitled to take more. I'm not saying my dad doesn't deserve some of this for being so gullible, but Marta is something else. The next day, my dad went straight to a lawyer. He's officially filing for divorce. I don't think I've ever seen my dad so determined before. It's like he finally realized how badly he was being used. Marta lost her mind. She showed up at the house while my dad wasn't there, started banging on the door and screaming that they were treating her like trash. I wasn't there, otherwise I would have told her she was trash, but my dad's security camera caught her yelling that she was going to ruin him in court. She left before the cops were called, but something tells me this isn't over yet. Morgan, true to form as the loyal daughter, tried to convince my dad to work things out with Marta. She told him if he really loved her, he wouldn't let me come between them. My dad responded, "This has nothing to do with Alex. This has everything to do with your mother being a liar and a thief." Morgan told him he wasn't allowed to talk about her mother like that, and that if he divorced her, she would cut him out of her life forever. And my dad just said, "Okay." Even I didn't expect that response. I expected him to stammer or hesitate about losing her. Morgan burst into tears, because she was also expecting her tantrum to make him back down. My dad didn't say much else, he just hung up the call while Morgan was still crying. I don't think I'll update again, because honestly, I'm kind of done with them. But I wanted to share this last part because I never in a million years imagined things would explode like this. Update 4. Okay, I know I said I wouldn't update again, but trust me, you're gonna want to hear this. And it's not just an update with a little more info, it's an update that comes with a side of justice. After my last update, Marta finally seemed to accept that the divorce was serious. But instead of keeping a low profile and figuring out her next move, like any sensible person would, she decided to make things even worse for everyone, but especially for herself. She went around telling everyone that my dad was abandoning her and that I had manipulated him into leaving her. She even had the nerve to say that my dad had been emotionally abusive to her and that she was the real victim in all of this. She seriously tried to fight the divorce and demand alimony, despite the fact she'd been stealing money from my dad for years. Her logic was that she'd given up so much to be with him and she deserved to be compensated. Well, she was compensated, but not how she wanted. Luckily, my dad's lawyer doesn't mess around with clients and their stupid questions. Since he had clear proof that Marta had been siphoning money, her attempt to get alimony completely backfired. Not only did the court deny her request, but now she's facing a potential lawsuit herself to pay my dad back all the money she stole. She's looking at losing absolutely everything. After losing the alimony case and being completely cut off by my dad, Marta tried one last desperate move. She showed up at my dad's house saying she needed to pick up some of her stuff. But my dad's not stupid. He knew she hadn't left anything of value there. He told her to send him a list and he'd arranged to have everything mailed to her. Marta started pounding on the door, yelling that he at least owed her a face-to-face conversation. When that didn't work, she started fake crying saying she just wanted to talk. But my dad just told her to go home. Finally, she left in a huff, not without yelling that he was going to regret this. So far, after those threats, the only one regretting anything is her. But hey, talk is cheap. And it gets better. Morgan had pulled this whole drama about cutting my dad off forever if he divorced Marta. That lasted, like, a month. Then she realized something really important. She needed money. Morgan had always relied on my dad's generosity. He helped her with rent. He paid for part of her wedding without knowing it. He'd even slip her extra cash when she was in a bind. But now, that money train had stopped for good, and Marta wasn't willing or able to help her out financially. So, Morgan came crawling back to my dad. She had the nerve to call him, crying, saying she didn't mean it when she cut him off. She told him that even though things with her mom weren't working out, she'd still like to have her father in her life. And my dad told her, his exact words were, "Morgan, I hope you figure it out, but I am not your ATM." And he hung up. She tried calling him several more times, but he blocked her. Update 5. Before I get to the good stuff, a lot of people have asked about my current relationship with my dad, since he's clearly not been the best dad to me. And that's reflected in how we interact these days. We haven't cut off all contact, but we're not close like we once were, either. We're cordial, and that's about it. I know he regrets it. But he shouldn't just regret anything, he should regret not sticking up for me way earlier, instead of taking the jewelry thing so lightly. Without my prank, he'd probably still be defending them today. The good news is, my dad won the lawsuit and managed to get back a big chunk of the money he'd lost to Marta. He got back what he lost, yeah, but not all the money he blew on her and her daughter, who were absolute leeches. If you look at this story from my dad's, Marta's, or Morgan's perspective, it might seem like a sad story. But if you look at it from mine, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard at a prank. And I don't even usually pull pranks, but this one, they totally deserved this one. 39.6s.